Welcome to another episode of the House Huddle Podcast. Here are your hosts, Rob Schwartz and Justin Onayemi, two Bears fans who decided talking into a microphone was better than shouting at their television.
Welcome in to episode 66 of the House Huddle Podcast. Huddle up! Man, we are on point.
Oh, that one took it out of me. Okay.
It's going to be a good night, though, I can tell. This is episode 66. There's only one player, so we can't really be choosy.
Yeah, but classic, man.
Classic.
Clyde Bulldog Turner. Everyone knows that.
Yeah, and 1966 is what I saw was his last year, so that's
really
kind of interesting, right? 66.
I thought he was earlier than that.
That was his last year.
This says 1940 to 1952.
Oh, okay. Maybe I have bad info. What I was just reading said 1966. So
that's a long career if he did go that long.
Yeah. Either way, he was an
old timer. We had to look it up.
Yeah, we had to look it up. I had no idea. Apparently, he was a center, which this team could use.
Yes, they could.
And also a linebacker, which this team's okay at.
Yeah, today they saw their backup come in and didn't look like we missed much.
No, which almost makes you wonder why they spent $19 million a year on a...
I still like Edmonds better in coverage.
I do too, but, an off-the-ball linebacker, I mean... I'm not a big fan of paying that position that much. It's part of the reason why I was okay with Roquan leaving.
If they didn't pay Edmonds, they probably wouldn't have even reached the floor of the salary.
That's true.
They got a lot of money still to spend. That could be something we talk a little bit about this episode.
Well, they did just spend quite a bit.
We could segue in.
Yeah. I think that's the first thing to talk about because we're a little behind.
We're behind.
Right.
But hey, when I was thinking about that trade and how would I grade it and everything like that, this was before extending him.
Right.
Like, I like the trade a lot with the assumption they were going to be able to sign him.
Correct.
It would be an F if you didn't sign him.
Oh,
they're not in a position to rent a player.
If you traded for him and didn't re-sign him, yes. And I'm a Ryan Poles supporter. I am sorry.
Fireable.
He should be fired immediately.
So then my next thought was, okay, they can't sign him and they have to franchise tag him. Now it's basically a D in my mind.
Yeah.
Because for that year, you're paying a high rate. And you use that slot on what you might need to use to keep Jalen Johnson around, which is a whole nother thing to talk about.
Correct. But obviously
they were able to get the deal extended.
Yeah, and obviously we haven't even said the name yet, but the guy we are talking about is Montez Sweat, right? Second round pick for Montez Sweat. There were other teams interested. In fact, he thought he was going to Atlanta. That's where he's from, so he was looking forward to that. And then Chicago just kind of came in out of nowhere. According to Ryan Poles, he thought Sweat was off the table, and they revisited it and came up with a deal, and now he's in Chicago.
Well, that's because Washington sees that Bears pick as it's going to be a high second-round pick.
Definitely top 40.
Just like with Chase Claypool last year.
Correct.
However, Montez Sweat is a very different player.
Yes.
And I imagine part of that was the Bears talking to the agent and thinking they could get a deal done just days later before he even suits up once for your team.
Yep.
They extend him to a 4-year deal as if he's a top 10 edge rusher in the league. That's debatable. Maybe he's top 10, top 15. You didn't have anything like that, and you weren't going to get it with the second-round pick that you gave up.
Correct. Now we just need to hope that wherever he's living isn't cursed as he is renting out Chase Claypool's old place.
Can I just say one more thing real quick about it though? Like, people might think, why give up so much? He was going to become a free agent. You see what happened when he went to the Bears. They signed him. Wherever he was going to get traded, with that team giving up that much capital, they were going to sign him or they were going to franchise tag him.
And if they didn't.
So if he ended up in Atlanta, he wasn't going to hit free agency for the Bears to go after.
Right. And if he didn't get traded, I don't think he hits free agency either because I think somehow Washington keeps him.
Right. So he was not going to reach free agency, as we now see.
Right.
Any other team that saw him go to the Bears was probably hoping they wouldn't be able to sign him. It didn't take long. He was signed.
It's a different situation than what we're seeing with Chase Young, who went to San Francisco. And the reports out of there is well, one, I don't think they even have the money to pay him right now. And two, he wants to hit free agency.
Right.
So
he wants to prove what he can do. So he goes to a team where they're stacked.
Yep.
And he can probably load up on some stats.
Yeah.
But they're okay renting a player.
Correct.
Because they're competitive right now.
They're
And
pushing for a Super
for a
Bowl.
title,
And
so.
they did this last year when they made a trade for McCaffrey.
Not quite a rental, though.
No, and it worked out for them. And I think, in this case, I think it will work out for them as well. He's going to a pretty stacked defensive line with Bosa and Armstead, and they have great linebackers there and Fred Warner. So
good position to be in to showcase yourself and hit free agency. That's not what the Bears needed.
Yeah.
A guy coming off a knee injury where he missed almost an entire season.
My original meatball take was, of course, the Bears trade a second for Montez Sweat, while San Francisco only has to trade a third for Young. I love the upside of Young just because he's only 24. You lock him in for a long time. He was basically a first round pick. I mean, a first overall pick. I think he went second overall.
Second or third. Yeah, second maybe.
So like the pedigree was there. He's just dealing with injuries. Now he's healthy. He's having a really good season this year. The upside to me felt like Chase Young was the better idea for a team that's rebuilding. But
I could argue
looking
against
back
that.
on it, this team needs to learn how to win. And granted, Montez Sweat's coming from Washington, so it's not like it's a team that knows how to win. But like, there's work ethic issues that were coming out from Washington about Chase Young, and they were more upset about losing Montez Sweat than they were about losing Young. So it's like, I think they got a good player. He's 27. It's not like he's 30.
No, he's still around his prime.
Yeah.
He's a complete player.
Very complete player.
He can play against the run. He can pass rush. He's been consistent. I mean, if you look at his career numbers, they don't jump off the page, but they're solid.
Right.
But they're consistent stats.
Yeah.
And
we saw a little flash today.
Yeah, he made a couple plays.
His snaps were a little bit limited, obviously, coming in halfway, not even getting a full week of practice, basically.
He had a major pressure on a third down that mattered a lot.
It almost looked like a fumble.
Yeah. Where was Edmonds to pick it up?
Right.
He had a play where, to me, he was obviously held. And that was the portion of the game where they weren't calling anything on New Orleans, apparently. Yeah. They didn't get their first penalty till well into the third quarter, I want to say. We can get to that later. But he was active at times. I mean, compared to what they have on the D-line, I noticed him. You hardly noticed anyone else.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if it's scheme or what, because Ngakoue is a good pass rusher too. And it's just like, we saw him the first two games and he's just kind of disappeared.
Yeah, I'm hoping Sweat's presence could bring out more in him. And quite honestly, the defense played pretty well today. I mean, I wouldn't say it was because of pressure from the front four.
No.
But you have a strong secondary. You were missing key pieces, but you're slotting guys in, and they're performing too.
Yeah.
Kyler Gordon has really impressed me with how active he's been, coming up and sticking on tackles. So the defense, 4 out of the last 5 games has played very solid. And you want to say they're building something, but then you look at the record and they're 2-7.
Well, just like wins aren't a quarterback stat, they're not a specific defensive player stat either. Like, this is a team sport. Like, honestly, like you can look at basketball and a team can get a superstar in the draft or make a trade for a superstar, and it instantly changes the whole narrative with that team. Now you see most teams need at least 2, 3, right? Top level talented players for you to compete for a championship, but you're competitive even with just one because there's 5 players on the field or on the court at once.
And you're playing both sides.
Right. Now you go to the football field, there's 22 between each sides. Like it's a massively team-oriented sport. Giving someone a stat on wins is very difficult.
Unless they're the coach.
Coaching is different.
You're the coach.
Coaching is different.
I mean,
your job is to put these players in the best position to win.
I appreciate that the Bears seem to still be a team that plays hard, that's out there trying, all that. But let's be honest, that's like the job of a high school coach or a college coach.
Yeah.
To get guys to try. this is you win or you're gone. I would hope anyway. That hasn't been always the history as Bears fans that we've witnessed.
Right.
But we kind of laid it out last week. Like, this is a crucial offseason, which now this is episode 66. You roll it back about 20 episodes. I probably was saying the same thing about last offseason.
I was thinking the same thing.
I literally probably could snap what I just said.
Rinse and repeat. Like,
but you can't do it another year. And you really scared me last week when you mentioned going into 2021 when we all thought Nagy has to be gone.
Yep.
Pace has to be gone. They ran it back and let them bring in Justin Fields.
And then this past week,
which is a huge
Poles was talking up Eberflus a lot. And I know he didn't talk him up as a coach. People are pointing that out. He didn't talk him up as a coach. He talked him up as a person, and with a little bit of coaching in there, like how dedicated he is. And, he's always trying to improve upon things. And it's just not enough. Like, it's just not enough. And some people might look at this Montez Sweat trade as a way of saying, look, they're going to run this back. But we talked about it a little bit earlier today off camera. I don't think that the Montez Sweat trade states Eberflus is staying. His whole mantra is we build our pressure from the inside out. You look at the teams that he had in Indianapolis, there weren't always, big names at the defensive end position. I think, if anything, this just shows that Ryan Poles is looking to find talented players to put in position. He saw what the draft looked like. There aren't a lot of top-tier defensive ends coming out of the draft this year. As you said, you don't know who's going to hit free agency. I think making the trade for Sweat now, and people are going to say, well, $98 million is a lot of money. It is. It's a lot. But I think if I looked at it correctly, he is slotted in as the 5th highest paid edge rusher. That includes outside linebacker. And he's the 3rd highest paid defensive end. Come next year, he could easily drop down to 10. That's just how it works.
Bears have tons of cap space. They know how to backload and front load and do different things to deals.
I'm glad you brought up backload and front load, because I said when you got this happened, I said my thing is I want to see how the contract is structured, because, and we're gonna talk big picture. We're gonna get to the game. But everybody's doing post game stuff. So I
do. Well, go ahead.
I want to talk a little bit big picture here, but when
the structure of the contract,
you look at the structure of the contract, if it was front loaded, to me, that screams they're still in on Justin Fields, because you don't have to pay Justin Fields for another 2-ish years. Mm-hmm. If it's backloaded,
they want to bring in a
that
younger
screams
guy.
They're going to just redo the quarterback contract.
Right.
It turns out
it's middle loaded.
It's the same cap every year, 24, 25
but
million
the cap
every year.
Consistently goes up.
Correct.
So what by the time he's reaching year 3 and 4 of that deal, he's less and less of a percentage of the cap hit.
Right.
And every other end is now using his contract to negotiate off of.
Correct.
You're not going to get around it. They needed a player like that. They signed him for a reasonable deal. They have tons of money. This doesn't even mean they can't sign Jalen Johnson.
No.
And it should mean you want to sign Jalen Johnson, because they work off of each other.
Yeah.
I actually think this defense has got a core base that could be pretty strong, especially if you plug in a few key guys. I mean, honestly, the secondary is strong. I don't know injury-wise. They seem to have issues there.
They need safety help.
Because Brisker's not been consistent, and Eddie Jackson's getting a bit older.
Yeah.
But if that's all you're looking for to say that you have a very solid average to above average defense, now you got a few things to figure out on offense. But with 2 top 5 picks, I know they gave up a second. That's going to be a high second.
This isn't the Chase Claypool situation.
It's not. But we know Poles likes to make deals. He might do something to get that pick back.
Yeah.
Some people are saying if they lose Jalen Johnson in free agency, they'll get a compensatory pick. But I don't want to go down that road.
Right. And Terrell Smith, I mean, he hasn't played a lot, but when he was out there, he looked solid too. So if by chance they do lose Jalen Johnson, I don't want that to happen. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that Smith is ready to be the next Jalen Johnson. I think Jalen Johnson is the CB1 on this team. I'd love to see him stick around. He's still young. Like you said, him plus Tremaine Edmonds plus God, I'm blanking on the other linebacker.
TJ Edwards.
TJ Edwards. Now you got Montez Sweat.
Brisker,
Gordon.
Gordon.
You got the 2 defensive tackles that you brought in. Like
Dexter, yeah.
You re-signed Billings. I mean, they went from 31st against the run last year, and now they are a top 10 rush defense. Like,
and
Alvin Kamara had a horrible day today, and I know because we have him in fantasy.
Well, Taysom Hill, of course, had to vulture a few of his opportunities. But, the guys you just named, I feel like they're performing well right now under what you would call an Eberflus system. But I imagine they could run other things as well. They're just solid players.
Right. And they're running what they're running in this system is just basic, 4-3 base.
Exactly.
Like it's not anything flashy.
Nothing too
We're
exotic.
not seeing them doing a lot of stunts
to do more things though. So but what you were saying before about this Montez Sweat signing doesn't necessarily speak to Eberflus being locked in. Can you speak to what it says about Poles' status?
He ain't going anywhere.
Exactly. That's what I'm thinking.
I mean, they just allowed him to spend over $100 million between Billings and Sweat. He traded away a second-round pick.
High-level draft capital.
There is nothing to me that says that he is not going to be here in 2024. And to be honest, he should be.
I think so.
And here's the thing. Everyone wants to point out, like, he's made mistakes. Every general manager makes mistakes. Okay, let's get that off the table first. The Chase Claypool trade looks like crap. It looks absolutely awful. He traded him to Miami and at least got something in return.
I was gonna say.
And then today, he finally gets on like the field and he has 3 plays. Boom, boom, boom. All bad.
That's what I was gonna say is maybe now Miami's gonna be the one being like, we got screwed in the trade for Chase Claypool. I mean, it wasn't the same amount, but you got something for a mistake.
Correct.
You don't just wallow in it. I mean, you're like you said, you're going to make a mistake. You swing for it, you make a mistake. I still think that when he made that trade, he did not obviously know he was going to get a DJ Moore.
No.
Without DJ Moore, that takes a whole new look in my mind.
And it's similar. The one thing that is a little bit similar to the Sweat trade is the market looked bad at wide receiver in free agency. I mean, I can't think off the top of my head of any wide receivers that went anywhere in free agency that are making a huge difference.
They're not. And it was a bad market.
Yeah.
He took the best guy from the market, extended him.
Like even Brandon Cooks in Dallas has done like nothing.
Yeah, he's had one or two good games.
Back-to-back games,
bad ones.
and it was only because he had touchdowns in back-to-back games.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it was like 4 catches for like 40 yards.
It wasn't high volume. It wasn't high impact.
I didn't see what he did today.
Shoot. Oh, another difference, and I don't know. We know how the season ended. Bears ended 3-14. At the time of that trade, I want to say they were 3-4.
They were.
So they might have thought of themselves not just in the long term, but maybe they thought they were buyers. Here, it's like they made a move. A few other teams made moves. It wasn't a lot of teams that made moves, and you weren't expecting the Bears to be buyers at 2-6. Now 2-7.
Ryan Poles is he's either a very bad poker player or he's a very good poker player because he keeps saying how they weren't going to be active at the trade deadline, but then obviously they were. So it's either like now we know, like every time he says something is going to be the opposite. I guess we'll have to see how that goes. But he has put them in a position. He tore this team down. Fans are not patient. We are not patient. We want to see immediate results. It's like when you start working out in January, you get to the end of the month, you've only lost 4 pounds, but you've been busting your ass the whole time. You stop working out because you're not getting immediate results. You can't do that. You got to keep going. Eventually, the pounds start to shut off. In this case, Ryan Poles has set them up for a strong future.
It seems that way.
They got lucky and got the first pick in the draft last year or this year. And he made something crazy happen out of it. Getting DJ Moore in that trade to me is amazing. But now you're looking at possibly the first pick again. At worst, you're going to be in the top 5. Twice. Right? Twice. Because Thursday, you're guaranteed to not move up in one of those picks, right? are back.
Wow.
So now, not only do you have 2 picks, most likely in the top 5, that you could also wheel and deal. Maybe you're getting that second round pick back. Maybe you're just dropping back in the first and you're getting another future first and you have another 2 for next year. He's done all of this. Their cap situation is fantastic. This is very different. And I know the results aren't there yet, but we have to give him time to put this together. If it's not there and we're not seeing results in 2024 with
super hot seat,
a big push looking for 2025, you got to go somewhere else.
Here's my question. I mean, 2024, if there's not progress, obviously he's on the hot seat.
Yes.
Does it make a difference, though, if that's with a new coaching staff or not?
No.
I don't think it does to you.
No.
Does it to who would have to make that decision, which would be Warren or upper management of the Bears?
It shouldn't. If you're not seeing results from the players and now you're on your second coaching regime, that's telling me that it's more the players than the coaches.
And he brought in the players.
Correct.
We don't know if he brought in the coaches.
We don't. I personally don't believe. I mean, okay, look,
because if that's
he brought in Eberflus. He brought in Eberflus.
That's his mistake then.
He had 3 coaches that were presented to him as the top options from George McCasty and Bill Polian.
Do you not know the names?
I cannot remember all of them. It was Eberflus. It wasn't Brian Flores because I would have loved Flores. It was Caldwell, Jim Caldwell.
Okay.
And I'm blanking on the third one.
All right. Nobody that got a job, and now
I'll look it up while we're talking. We're going to figure it out. But here's the thing. He was told that he could go off that list. It didn't have to be on that list, is what we were told. Do I really believe it, though? I don't. We know how this organization is run. Why are we blaming polls when that situation shouldn't have been in place at that point?
Don't give him a list.
The organization is proven.
Hire a general manager that you trust to make the decision.
Yes. Like,
well, I don't know. We have to see progress. Parts of this game even looked like progress, but maybe after the break we go into the game. But I just want to, for anybody who wants to look it up, I need some stat geek to look some stuff up for me. But I believe this has to be the smallest deficit. I'll go with 2 of these stats have to be the smallest deficit you could ever have. Lose the turnover battle by 5, but only lose the game by 7 points. That's pretty impressive, Bears. Now here's another one. In the 4th quarter, there was not a single play that was run on New Orleans' side of the field. And again, you only lost that game by 7. So I don't know how that happens. The third one I was going to throw in there was you have 7 more penalties than the other team for a total of 66 more yards than the other team. I find it shocking that you could say those 3 things happened in this game, and yet the Bears only lost by 7. So again, I think the defense stepped up in a lot of ways. Also a couple of weird kicks. Santos missed his first one of the year off the right upright. And then their rookie kicker missed one off the left upright. So I don't know what every betting line was, but in our league, it was over under 41, it ended up hitting exactly that number. And there was a lot of weird stuff going on in the game. So Bagent, up and down. We can talk about that on the other side of the break. And Rob will have the names on the other side of the break.
Yeah, I think it was actually Dan Quinn, which honestly, I think out of those 3, I would have probably taken Dan Quinn. I'm going to confirm that, but I think that's who it was.
So, but yeah, the Bears lose another one, fall to 2-7. And for Carolina, they got kind of steamrolled, I would say.
Yeah.
And fell to 1-7.
Yeah.
Because they had their bye already. And those 2 teams will be matched up this Thursday. So
the only thing that I'm waiting for now is Kyler Murray to come back and make the Cardinals better. And then hopefully Chicago.
That's their only competition right now for 1, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Although even the Giants, though, I think they're 2-7. They're pretty miserable.
They are pretty
miserable.
And you
wanted Dable, so.
Yeah. if you guys want the Chicago Bears to have the first overall pick, whether it's their pick or a Carolina pick, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, leave us a comment. You guys are entered into a free giveaway. I know it's taking a while, but if you guys want this jersey giveaway to happen sooner, please share our podcast with other people. Get the name out there, pass it around. We typically only record once a week. I think that it's pretty easy to work that into your regular podcast listening. If you don't believe that I have any credibility, I literally write for Bear Goggles On. I was featured on 670 The Score this past week with some of the stuff that I was putting out on Twitter. So listen to the Danny Parkins and Spiegel show.
Yeah.
We're not just like sitting here like, I know it says we didn't want to yell at the television in our intro and we just decided to like talk to you guys, but it's not like we're not like avid, like we're not media members. We're not, but we're not like just regular avid fans who like don't pay attention to the game, don't look at the implications of things. We look at way more than probably your casual fan.
We're nothing like Jim McFan and
yeah, we fired them. They wouldn't actually. They quit.
I was gonna say probably had another heart attack or two.
They quit. But even if you don't want them to have the first overall pick, whatever, you just hit the subscribe button. Leave us comments. I always try to get to those as soon as possible. I was a little bit delayed this week, and I apologize for not responding. But work got in the way, and I had a funeral to go to. So.
All right. So on the other side of this break, we'll go a little bit more into the game. Talk about Tyson Bagent, and will he be the quarterback on Thursday? Short week.
We'll find out. Enjoy these ads.
Welcome back, Hallis Huddlers. Episode 66 of the Hallis Huddle. I'm Justin Onayemi with Rob Schwarz. We're discussing the Week 9 loss to the New Orleans Saints, making the Bears' overall record on the season 2-7. They'll be playing Thursday night this week, so a short week of preparation coming off of this loss to face a team that happens to actually be just a slight bit worse. The 1-7 Carolina Panthers. Later, maybe as a preview of that, we can talk about two rookie quarterbacks that look very different right now, and whether or not the Bears should have perhaps looked into one of them, but not going there right at this moment.
Okay.
So to talk about the game a little, we haven't talked about the game that much. We were looking more big picture, but I like what you said, Rob. It was a tale of two halves. Mm-hmm. Whether you're looking at how Tyson Bagent performed or the team overall, the first half, a lot of things that you could look at in a positive way, a few negatives as well. But everything fell apart in the second half. And even with that all being said, they only end up losing by 7 on the road in a very tough environment. I think that may also speak to the fact that New Orleans is not that great of a team. I think this win actually put them in first place in the NFC South. But we already talked about how that division is kind of a lesser division coming into the season. So what were your thoughts on the first half of the game and then what happened in the second?
So I started the game on time, but then had to leave in the middle of it. I shouldn't say middle of it. Leave 5-10 minutes into it. And then when I got back, I was trying to catch up. So I wanted to text you at one point, but I wasn't sure if you were live. And I didn't want to give anything away. At one point, even after the interception, the first interception by Tyson Bagent, I was going to text you and say, look, this is Tyson Bagent's best performance. This was better than the win over the Raiders. In that game, it was quick reads. Very few of those snaps led to progressions, and not one ball traveled over 15 yards. Mm-hmm. They tried to show that he could throw the ball deeper in the next game. Hit Mooney on that great pass, right. Gets up, doesn't sell it well enough, and probably could have scored. Refs blow it dead.
Fell way behind, and then it was over after that. But
he didn't look as crisp as he was looking to start this game. And it wasn't just the first 15 plays, like the scripted stuff. Mm-hmm. You saw him standing in the pocket. You saw him getting to his like third read and letting it rip. And the release is much faster than Justin Fields. There's no debating that. He has a much faster release than Justin Fields. Even if you're a Fields.
And a much slower velocity.
That's right. And we saw that almost happen a couple times where like, well, that is what happened.
2 of the picks, at least,
Yeah.
I think, the ball just didn't get to the receiver. That one was a bad read, and it just didn't get to the receiver. One didn't get to the receiver, and it was thrown behind him a bit. So it wasn't like perfect placements.
Tyler Scott.
But I also think these balls just weren't getting there quite fast enough, allowing that little extra tick
right.
For guys to get in there, and they made good plays too.
The Tyson, and we're just gonna keep repeating ourselves because it's the same thing I think we say every week. The Tyson Bagent story is fantastic. I'm not putting a ceiling on Tyson Bagent. He can work his way up to be a quarterback 1 in this league. He's not there yet. He's an undrafted Division II rookie in his 3rd start. We shouldn't even really, I'm going to do it, but we shouldn't even really be comparing him to Justin Fields, but I feel like we have to. And the only reason that I'm saying we have to is because we need to debunk this whole quarterback controversy stuff.
But here's the thing. You and I last week talked about how good coaches adjust to the situations. They adjust to their opponent. They adjust to who their personnel is, who's available, what they're capable of, what they maybe are limited in.
Mm-hmm.
As I was watching the game plan today, I could picture these plays with Fields running them.
Yes.
Where you're doing fake pitches rolling out. Lots of moving the pocket today.
Yeah.
Lots of times where the pocket was pretty clean. You're looking, read 1, read 2. Even check down wasn't there, and you take off. I mean, I want to see Fields run the plays in a similar fashion to what Bagent does. But these picks, those are the type of things where that is a bit of an arm talent thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think the one that was kind of going towards Kmet was a bad read, and maybe he didn't know that the corner was going to come back into the play to pick it off. And he was only reading the safety that was over the top.
Cole Kmet tried to save his quarterback on that one. He said that he tried to freelance a little bit and that he should have gotten back. And I will admit,
I believe that too.
I
believe that too.
Some of these skill position guys refuse to play defense when you just got to stop them from intercepting the football, right? And he said like
come to the ball harder.
His route was done, so he like readjusted what he was doing. Bagent threw a good ball, and he should have been there to.
Do you think
at
it was a
least
good ball?
block it? No.
Okay.
Again, I think he's just sticking up for his quarterback.
That's fair.
But Tyson Bagent took full blame of everything in his press conference. Like I give him credit. And when you hear him speak, one of the things I loved, I was a Mitch Trubisky truther. Okay. I fell into that whole thing. I still think he's a decent quarterback, but he's not.
Don't
he's
keep
not,
going, Rob.
No.
Acceptance.
He's a decent quarterback, but he is not good enough to be a top level quarterback in the league.
And that's how they treated him from day one, by trading up a pick.
Right. And this is why he's now a backup.
Right.
But now I forgot where I was going with it.
Bagent Trubisky comparison.
There were many times in press conferences that Mitch Trubisky would just say, I don't know, I got to look at the tape. I don't know, I got to look at the tape. Because then he would go and look at the tape. He'd probably get the answers from the coaches on what he was supposed to be doing with it and then discuss it later.
Interesting.
Where here, I mean, Tyson Bagent was telling you, no, I needed to do this. I needed to do that. He knew exactly what was going on. He was able to speak to plays, recall them, right?
Mm-hmm.
He has already cemented himself into this league as a quarterback 2. That's great. Why do we have to make it any more than that at this point? I don't think we do. We should be cheering him on. Yes, we have a solid quarterback 2 that's a developmental quarterback that we haven't seen here forever. Mm-hmm. We get these guys that we bring in who are the Andy Daltons of the world and the Nick Foles of the world, who could be quarterback QB1s at times, but also are QB2s at times.
I didn't think those were the names you were going for. I was thinking of the Moses Morenos.
Well,
and
okay, Dan Lefevre.
Right.
I mean, like these
but
guys.
those were your quarterback twos on some of these teams,
Right.
man.
Yes.
So to have this in Bagent is really nice. Now, I would like to see Fields come back. We're not sure when that will be. He did practice a little bit. He's throwing in limited ways, but it's all about the grip. It's his throwing hand, so you got to be like very, very comfortable before you're going to be able to truly perform.
Right.
And
now it's a short week.
It's a short week. I mean, for him, it might not seem that way because he's missed multiple games at this point. But
for me,
if not then you have a longer week, and you would really hope he's back by the Detroit game. But
for me, I always thought the Detroit game was like the soonest we could see him. If he comes back 1 week sooner, I mean, that's fantastic, as long as he's truly healthy and they're not just plugging him in because we saw Tyson Bagent turn the ball over.
No, but to your point,
4 times.
Even in a game where his end statistics aren't the greatest, there was parts of that game where I'm sure the Bears loved what they were seeing out of him and the way he was managing the offense and moving the ball down the field. So if you had to play him on Thursday, I'm sure they're comfortable with him.
Yeah.
Which means he's a very good QB2.
Yes.
In his very first season as an undrafted free agent. That's major kudos to the Bears staff. I'm not just saying Poles because I know the Getsy connection at the Senior Bowl.
It's Getsy's pet project.
Right.
Right.
But that's very impressive that they did that. Leave it at that for now. When Fields comes back, they still have a lot to evaluate there.
And they've said
to see what these top 5 picks, 2 of them,
right,
what you're going to do with those, whether you're a believer in Fields moving forward or it's time to go another route.
And they said from the beginning, when Justin's healthy, he's quarterback 1. Like there shouldn't be a controversy, but fans on social media are making it one.
Even after today, or did today put that to rest?
I haven't been on enough to see it on social media. I can tell you after the first half, it was still going. Okay. I can tell you that much, but even like the national media was making it a thing, right? Like Fields needs to learn some things from Tyson Bagent. And to be honest, there are some things that Tyson Bagent does.
Everyone should learn from everyone.
Exactly.
That's a professional. That's
and as
an
fans,
observer of the game.
I don't like to tell people how to fan, but as fans, we should be cheering on both of them. Or at the very least, want to see, we know Tyson Bagent is a backup quarterback in this league. Again, I'm not putting a ceiling on him. Everyone says, oh, why is everyone just saying he's already a backup and only a backup? No, I'm not saying that. He could develop into something more. We've seen enough to know he's not there yet. I don't want to see him play out the rest of the season. I want to see Justin Fields come back. And are we going to see the Justin Fields that we saw for 2 weeks against Denver and the Commanders? And then he only threw 10 passes against Minnesota. I know it wasn't great, but he was 6 of 10 passes. He was getting blitzed like crazy.
The interception game planning was tipped at the line.
He got hit. Yeah, basically. He got like hit. These it wasn't enough for me to be like, oh, well, Justin Fields is shit. Like, he just can't handle it. No, what I want to see is give him some more games. I want to know for sure. Keep him. Move on. Right? That's where we need to be at.
We hope it's definitive by the end of the season.
Right.
So the sooner he comes back and him staying healthy through the remainder of the year. So let's say he doesn't come back on the short week. Then there's a long week. And by then, you're talking November 19th, week 11 at the Lions. We really would hope he could come back for that. Now, if he were to play that game and stay healthy through the end of the season, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more games. Yeah. 2 of those are against the Lions. 1's against the Vikings. 1's against the Packers. I bring that up because that's your division.
Yep.
That's who you want to see him play against. Browns on the road where he probably has a few ghosts.
They still have a good defense, guys.
Cardinals and Atlanta. And Atlanta's a okay team. So it'd be nice to see him play that many games because then you could hopefully say he's shown us enough to buy into him 1 more year.
Yep.
Or he's shown us enough that we think we need a new top-of-the-line quarterback.
Yeah.
You're going to have the draft capital to do it. And then I believe he becomes a trade candidate.
Correct.
And hopefully it's after 6 or 7.
Correct.
Okay games.
And I want to see Luke Getsy call the offense similar to what we've been seeing over the last few weeks. Because prior to this, we weren't seeing the constant rollouts and the moving in the pocket and the 6 and 7 max protecting. Like, that wasn't happening. But
Komet on one of his catches today, blocked for a little bit, released.
Oh, it was fantastic.
Wonderful play.
I will say, in the beginning of that game, and there was a segment of this game.
Way back to the beginning.
There was a segment of this game that when Tyson Bagent was doing some fantastic pre-snap reads. He was audibling. He was checking. Can. Then he was getting basically to the hot route. Like, there was one where they came, and I want to say it was to Mooney. Boom. First pass. You knew that they were bringing the heat. Someone's open. He didn't hesitate. That's the stuff that Justin Fields needs to be paying attention to, right? Those are the things he doesn't do well. Minnesota game in particular, I didn't like the play design, but Fields needs to understand that guy's coming unblocked. I need to throw towards the blitz, not go this way. Change the play. Like, you're allowed to do that. Clearly, we're seeing Tyson Bagent changing plays. There was another one where they did I think that might have went to Mooney also. A little wide receiver screen that went for like 15 yards. I think I got called back actually. But again, a good pre-snap read, found out what was happening, changed it. Boom. Those are the things that I want to see from Justin Fields. Tyson Bagent was making me feel like he was producing. Then the second half, things went downhill. But what I do want to say is, I said I don't want to compare them, but I'm going to only for, I'm hoping that no one is still thinking there's a quarterback controversy. But for those of you who do, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, then listen to this. Over the last 7 games, now these stats come from Swift Sports Network, okay? Swifty, if you guys are on Twitter or on YouTube, I'm sure you guys know who he is. Over the last 7 games, each quarterback has played 14 quarters. So he broke it down by quarter. Excuse me. Justin Fields was 60 for 96 and a 62.5% completion percentage. Tyson Bagent, 74 for 110 for a 67.2% completion percentage, even with today's 18 of 30. Right there. Pretty similar, but, obviously you're going to lean Bagent, who's at 67. That's a much better completion percentage.
Ball in air, yardage.
Right. We're not going to get into the whys, but yes, on paper, this looks better, right? Fields, 774 yards to Bagent, 690. Okay. Almost 100 extra yards.
That's air or passing yards.
With more than 10, almost 20 passes less, right? So intended air yards is definitely a difference here. Justin Fields, 9 touchdowns to Bagent's 3 touchdowns. Okay, so he's got him by 6. 3 interceptions for Fields and 1 fumble. I'm assuming
fumble lost.
That's fumble lost.
Oh.
I'm trying to think if he had more than that. Maybe not.
We know Bagent has.
Bagent had 7 interceptions and 3 fumbles. So 3 touchdowns to 10 turnovers, 9 touchdowns to 4 turnovers. There's not a quarterback controversy, guys. There's just not. Okay? But it doesn't need to be a Fields versus Bagent situation. It's the Chicago Bears found a backup quarterback. Let's see if we have a starting one. If not, we move on.
The best situation to me is he comes back and shows you he is the guy.
Yes, we talked about this.
And
in
you
the
have
last
2 top 5 picks
episode.
Because even if they win
wide receiver
3 games, that would be impressive. The defense has a lot of answers already.
Yeah. Imagine Braxton Jones as your swing tackle.
That's what I want to imagine.
Because
today when he did come back and play okay. He looked bad at times, had a weird false start. I think a hold as well. But in blocking, he looked like he was holding his own.
He got a hold, but it's not on the stat sheet because they declined his hold and they took Lucas Patrick. And did you see Lucas Patrick? He's like, "What the? Why are you taking mine?"
But it was immediately apparent to me when Borum was in.
Yeah. Oh God.
And if you take one of the top left tackles in this upcoming draft, and now Braxton Jones is your swing, you have a pretty strong line. I'm starting to already think that this line is average to slightly above average. That's without Nate Davis really much producing.
And that's with a center who's rolling the ball on the ground.
Rolling the ball on the ground.
What was that?
What was that?
Oh, they waved.
He shot a blank out of that shotgun snap.
They waved Doug Kramer, by the way.
They waved him?
They did.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he cleared waivers. I didn't see if they put him back on the practice squad.
Why was that decision made?
They needed roster spot, I guess. I don't know.
No, but why him? That's sad.
It is. I mean,
I'm really not impressed with what you have there.
Injuries has obviously derailed him a little bit, but
finally when you thought he was healthy, which maybe he's not as healthy as we think.
Right. But at the same time, like, they need a center, right? Left tackle and center on that line moving forward.
Some people's mock, that's something they're targeting in the second round with the pick they just gave up for Sweat.
Right. So, but I'm okay with that. You can
get another one. You can jump back up. They need to address it.
Tevin Jenkins looked fantastic. The right side. And did they stop running it to the right side in the second half? Oh, I wanted to touch on this. The second half happened for one reason. Luke Getsy again did not adjust. The Saints adjusted. Like, they started bringing pressure that they weren't bringing in the first half. Completely threw off Bagent's clock, which obviously led to a lot of the interceptions. And Getsy did nothing. He didn't really try to change the scheme. And then when it wasn't working, it was like,
what I thought was really interesting early in the game is play action was working from the very beginning.
The very first play was
prior
the
to
first
them,
play action,
right? Even prior to establishing the run,
right?
But I think that's because the Saints probably figured they're going to be run heavy. They're dealing with their backup quarterback.
And they've established the run the last 2 weeks.
Right, and they have. And if you look at the rushing yards, although a lot of it was Bagent on what I wouldn't describe as designed runs.
No.
But oftentimes rollouts where you put the one defender in a decision of, do I guard the guy or do I? And often they were guarding the guy, and Bagent's athletic enough and had the wherewithal to gain quite a few yards on some of those.
I do like his pump fakes when he runs. Fields doesn't do that a lot.
He just runs 4.4 right past you.
Exactly. That's true. That's true.
So,
what other notes did you have on the game besides quarterback? Like, unless there's something that stood out with you with the quarterback, but I'd like to just not talk quarterback.
Okay,
so
well,
much.
I will say we've given this dude flowers many, many times, and we know he's a game-changing player. But basically, I think the book on DJ Moore is that he's always going to fight for yards, and that's exactly what he tried to do on the play that he fumbled. You're in the middle of the field. You got two guys on you. That's a time where you probably could just go down.
Yeah.
He tried his patented escape. The second guy there knows the tackle's pretty much going.
Beautiful.
Great play.
Punch.
Great play. But you hate to see when what you do well ends up being kind of what hurts you.
I also hated it for my fantasy teams.
That's true. That's true. I got something for you. And I don't know how much longer we want to go, but I got something for you. Not a guy I've heard a lot about. Maybe you have. When Khalil Herbert is healthy, is there a role for him on the team? Because to me, he's the same thing as Dante Foreman, but not as durable. Dante Foreman has looked good in his opportunities. He was inactive weeks where he was healthy. He didn't pout and, turn into Chase Claypool, not to just name throw and throw a guy under the bus, but he handled it like a professional. Now his opportunity comes. He's looked very strong. I mean, you said wins are a team thing and no one won a particular game. He put up in that Raiders game in a beastly type of way, and you saw more of it again today. Running hard.
Although I wish he was not tripped. That one, that was a touchdown.
Should have been a touchdown.
He was mad. I mean, you saw him pounding.
Should have been a touchdown. He hasn't finished really. I could say there's been a lot of runs where he
doesn't have explosive
just
speed.
that one play.
He's a tough runner though.
And I'm just curious. I'm not saying you don't give him his opportunity, but they're loaded at that position.
They are,
which is a nice thing to see. Herbert, is he in the last year of his deal, or?
I believe so.
I'm not positive of that.
I believe so.
But anyway, running back controversy.
Yeah, there we go. That's way more likely here than the quarterback controversy.
Have you heard anything injury-wise with Herbert?
No, but he should be entering his 21-day window. I want to say it was week
Well, I thought it
4
was
that he went
minimum
out.
4 weeks, and then you decide when to start
Right,
the 21.
he's able to.
Yeah.
I think it was week 4 that he went down.
That was a bad injury. I mean,
Yeah.
at the time, we thought the worst at possibly. To see him actually come back in that game, which he never should have, and then collapse the way he did.
Right.
4 is the minimum. So I don't know what his status is, but the position is being well handled right now by Foreman.
To your point is like I haven't even looked into it enough because I haven't cared because the running back
I haven't noticed him missing.
Exactly. Even Darrington Evans, like
Rojo.
But that speaks volumes to this offensive line. Now they're not doing as well run blocking this year as they were last year, but like that to me screams like the offensive line is playing better. I just feel like you could run behind Darnell Wright and Tevin Jenkins like all the time, but I mean I know you can't because eventually they're just going to load up that side, but you do it until it stops working, and then you counter the other way.
Yeah.
There is one other player.
You've been pretty happy, but do I want to say something to anger you?
Go for it, because if it's where I was going, maybe it's
Bayless Jones.
Oh, that's where I was going. I was going to say there's one other guy we need to talk about.
He just finds ways to enter the storyline that are almost always negative.
Yeah.
A weird face mask penalty because one, like, how do you get a face mask when you're the team punting? And when they showed the replay, it didn't look that bad.
No, if anything, it should have been.
It mattered at that time.
Holding against him, but
he also had a catch fumble that was really an incompletion. So it was like, thankfully, you dropped the ball,
right,
instead of a fumble,
right.
But those are the only 2 things I remember him doing today, and they're both negative.
He had a fair catch today too on a kickoff, didn't he?
Did he?
I think he did.
We're giving him credit for that now.
No. I think that's just pointing out the fact that last year, before they did this rule change, he had a role.
Oh yeah,
like as a good kick returner, like he was averaging probably close to 30 yards a kick return for the season.
But it doesn't take like.
But now it's like
a sabermetrician to know that they're phasing this thing out.
Right, but if you can't use him in that role, what's the point of having him? Tyler Scott can run the stupid wide receiver end around.
To cover your butt on the fact that he was the first offensive player you selected as a GM.
Ryan Poles.
You spent a 3rd-round pick on a 26-year-old who already looks...
86, you mean? Ryan...
So, hey, 2 Ryan Poles supporters here.
Yes.
That's a bad pick.
It's okay to call him out on things he does wrong. It is.
But... as we just said, when he realized that the Claypool was the wrong move, he moved on from it and tried to recoup something. Yes. I think they didn't need to have Bayless on this roster.
Correct.
And maybe they were scared to admit their mistake in that regard.
Fountain or Darius Fountain. I feel like there was another wide receiver. I mean, even Dante Pettis I'd rather have at this point.
I don't know. That's always a sore subject for me. But
by the way, Kyler Gordon had another better game than
Pickens was bad.
George Pickens,
and he's causing.
Now he wants to be free.
Free me after the trade deadline, though.
Free me.
So I don't know. We'll see. It's headed. Man, I'm very curious how Thursday is going to go, and I don't know when we're going to record. Maybe Friday night.
I got Bears tickets that I can't sell, so if anyone wants to buy them, hit me up.
We expect the Bears to win. If they lose, like that was the one thing we said is like maybe could Eberflus be fired midseason? But again, this team today, they really were trying. They played a close game on the road, hostile environment. You're not firing him after that. So,
no.
But you lose to a team that
and the defense is playing well. Can we just demote him? I'm fine with him being the defensive coordinator. Well, no, I'm not.
Is there any precedent of that where a head coach has been kept on but in a demoted role?
I don't think so.
Well, you had mentioned like no one fires a GM midseason, and then Raiders did it like the next day. They fired their coach and GM.
Yeah, GMs are very.
They did both.
It's more rare a GM than it is a coach.
Yeah.
So. Houston did too, right? With what the hell was that guy's name?
I forget.
I'm blanking on it, but the one that was there prior to their current GM. I want to say was fired midseason also. Like right after the trade deadline, he made like a really weird trade. I'm blanking on it.
Not sure.
But yeah, they're not going to fire him. He's gonna be here, and you know the closest thing I've seen to that is like a regime change, and then they still can get like Vic Fangio to stay on.
Right.
I don't think that's going to happen in this regard. And also, like, yes, they are playing well and better, but there's still no pass rush, and I need a pass rush.
Agreed.
And somehow they got to make that happen.
Agreed. So, all right, good episode. Please join us. We'll probably record Friday, I'm guessing, after the Thursday game.
Friday, Saturday, somewhere around there.
Somewhere in there for the Sam Mustipher episode.
Yeah.
Or we'll find one better, but I don't know. That popped in my head.
Baltimore won 37-3 today.
Was it the Sam Mustipher game?
I think it might have been.
He might have gotten in.
Yeah.
That's how bad of a route it was.
Oh, gosh.
Man, Baltimore against NFC. Let's remember that for
yes. Don't
picks and for
UFFL. Don't listen.
Oh yeah, never mind. Bear down.
Bear down.